talking about the 4 skills that will make you unburnoutable. As a natural sort of high achiever or overachiever, for a long time, I was anxious about getting burned out because it was also kind of a trend or a hype, and it kind of still is nowadays, that burning out has something to do with overwork. And by now, more and more like therapists and kind of the mainstream science is slowly catching up with the fact that it has nothing to do with workload, and that you cannot actually solve burnout or even prevent burning out by just taking a vacation or introducing 10 minutes of meditation to your daily schedule. It has much more to do with meaning. The thing is that as human beings, we are meaning-making machines. We are storytellers, like natural storytellers. So we try to rationalize everything. We try to understand and analyze everything. And we basically create stories. We basically attach meaning to the experiences that we do. But the experiences always come beforehand. Like I always quote Steve Jobs saying, you can always connect the dots in hindsight. Like when you look back, you understand the decisions that you were taking that you did not understand at the time when you were taking them. So how does meaning work? And this is the first of the 4 skills that I'm talking about, is to understanding purpose. Because meaning or purpose, which are words that are used kind of interchangeably, is not pre-written. So there is no pre-written meaning of life. This is why humanity has always struggled to answer the question, what is the meaning of life? Because the meaning of your life is the experiences that you have. This is how you create meaning. This is how you create purpose. So what can we figure out then if there is no like meaning of life to be understood, but it's just your life is to be lived? Well, there is something, and it might sound a bit woo-woo at first if I call it a soul purpose, but it's actually much more practical than that. I like calling it a pre-incarnation intention, like an intention for incarnating. And you can actually see that pretty clearly without doing like shamanic journeys or hypnosis or whatever, if that's not your thing. You can just very simply look at your childhood, and like if you consider, allow yourself to consider for a moment that it was deliberate choice to incarnate in this particular time, in this particular family where you were born into, in that particular country. Like if you consider the possibility that it was a deliberate thing, that whoever you are as a bigger than just a physical being, like a spiritual being or whatever you want to call it, if this being can decide to incarnate, why would it do that in that particular situation? And what you will easily find is that there was a setup going on that would inform you about what is going to be important for your life. So, interesting enough, there's always a sort of congruency when you allow yourself to do these journeys, if you want to call them, and if you allow yourself to think back of your childhood and ask yourself questions like, what was the most painful thing for me? What was the most difficult about that setup? And then you will discover that it is always, like literally always, the opposite of what you actually want to do in your life. Like for me, for example, teaching and supporting people in understanding the complexity of being a human being, the work that I'm doing right now, there's nothing that I'm more passionate about than this. And I was literally born in such a dysfunctional family where there was so little knowledge about how emotions work and how humans are supposed to function and how friendship and family and all that works. It was a perfect setup for me because that painful situation was mirroring exactly those qualities that I need to learn, that I need to experience myself in order to have really embodied knowledge, not just read a book and kind of copy, or not just understand it cognitively, but being able to give you real life examples and real life wisdom coming from experiences that I had myself. So, skill number one is understand your purpose, meaning understand your intention. Why did you come here? Like, what is important for you? Even you don't have to like believe in reincarnation or whatever in order to look at your childhood and look at that setup and look at what gives you meaning, like what gives you alignment with who you really are, instead of trying to be something else than what you actually are. The second skill is surrender. And that has to do with our emotional side, because we are trained to look at the world in a very Newtonian way, where we're like, okay, I need to apply force for things to change. But that does not work with emotions. Like, you cannot work with emotions by confronting them. You need to listen to them. You need to be much more receptive. And that's why the word surrender, it implies that you let go of control and that you let go of a certain outcome. And like, you will be surprised if you never approached emotions in that way. You will be surprised at how easily it actually, how easy it is to handle them, because we always fear that if we allow ourselves to be sad, that we will never come out of sadness and like end up depressed, or that if we allow ourselves to really be anxious and be afraid, that we will kind of panic or whatever. But emotions are not designed to last. They are designed as waves. They always come, there's a build up, and then there is a discharge. This is a natural, this is by design. Like, this is very natural for emotions to work that way. And it is very natural for us humans to actually channel emotions through our being. And they are not meant to be predictable. Like, you are not meant to understand what is going on in a moment where you're feeling emotions, because emotions always come before the rational mind. The rational mind can usually understand what is going on, but later. Like, as Steve Jobs said, we can always connect the dots in hindsight. And this is very, very true for emotions. The problem is that we often suppress and deny the things that we feel. And by that, we deny our compass and again bring our system, our being out of alignment. And this does create a life that feels meaningless as well, because you're basically not being who you are. And there's a massive misunderstanding there. And this is one of the reasons why I teach emotional literacy, is because we are very illiterate. Like in a Western society, we have completely forgotten how emotions work. For example, depression is actually not being too sad or too negatively like too much, having too much grief or something like that. Depression is actually almost the opposite. It is resistance to grief, because actual grief, when you accept the sadness that you carry inside of you, then again it can build up, and you can cry and you can let it go, and it can go through you, and it even carries very important information about your values and what is important to you. When you listen to your own moments of sadness, this is always something that has to do with your values, with what you deeply care about. So again, this has to do with alignment and with purpose. So, or something like suicidal thoughts, for example, this has to do with feeling lonely emotionally, like feeling emotional isolation, that nobody really understands you. And that only happens because we suppress certain emotions and start entangling them. So there is like an emotional situation when you do not have possibilities of expressing what you feel, the anger and the sadness and the grief and the anxieties and all that. It can get so complex, it can get into such a dense kind of knot that it becomes hard to untangle that. And this creates a feeling of isolation because nobody understands you in that moment. And that can lead to suicidal thoughts. So it has always something to do with resistance and with not allowing the emotions to flow freely and to just feel. So we need to retrain to feel. We need to surrender to the fact that we are emotional beings. Skill number 3 is to retrain your body, to specifically retrain your nervous system to handle what is called the fight or flight response. And actually, in my experience, more like a fight or flight or freeze response, because this is often what is associated with burning out, is actually a response of your nervous system to some sort of overload. And this, again, it doesn't mean that you have been working too many hours, but it means that there is some sort of emotional pain that has been building up and that it has been unresolved, and that there is a certain overwhelm in your nervous system and that it needs space to decompress, literally decompress what has been compressed, which is always some sort of emotional pain. And that response is actually, it is again by design. We are not flawed as emotional beings. There is a lot of meaning and purpose in all these features. And the fight or flight response, as we know, it has to do with the fact that if you are attacked by a tiger in your cave and you need to run, then your body needs to prioritize energy for running, and then it stops doing things like digesting and whatever. But there is other parts to that we kind of forgot about. So we often live in that state of constant fight or flight response because we are anxious about, like, is my business gonna go well? Will this deal work out? What about my employees? Or if you're employed, what's your boss thinking about you? And all that anxiety that we have in us. And what we need to do is retrain our body to actually unfreeze and decompress and let go of the fight or flight into a more resilient physical state of being. And there is different techniques to do that. And so part of the things that I teach is, to really condition yourself, that not only that you have the tricks, that when you feel anxiety, that you know how to get out of it, but also to literally just train your body to never go there when you don't need to, and train your body to, when it goes there, to naturally come out again. Because this is how we are designed. Like when you look at other animals, when you look at a gazelle that has been peacefully grazing, and then there is a cheetah coming at it, and then it runs for its life, and it's like, this is a real, like for real, a fight or flight, in this case a flight kind of response. And then after the whole chase is done, and let's say that it makes its way and the cheetah, I don't know, gets distracted or whatever, what does it do? It does this shaking kind of thing. So it shakes the adrenaline and the cortisol and the stress hormones off with a specific breath and movement thing. So it looks a bit like it's shivering from like their head to the tail for maybe 2 seconds or so. And then it just goes on grazing peacefully as if nothing happened. And then there's humans watching the nature, whatever channel, who are like, wow, that was intense, and we cannot let go of it even hours later, you know? So we have kind of forgot, or we're conditioned to overlap, like literally other habits on top of the natural response that we actually would have, which would be to regulate ourselves back into a calm and resilient state. And skill number 4 is actually your mind, clearing your mind. This is another habit, and there's techniques for that too, to have your mind clear as a breeze. Because there is so much mental clutter going on, and there is so many impulses, like there is so much screaming for your attention, and there's no way you can be healthy and aligned if your mind is cluttered all the time. So mental clarity is one of those skills, again, that you can relearn. There's literally things like, I mean, obviously meditation is one of it. Meditation is not done the right way, unfortunately, quite often. But if you want to use meditation as a skill of clearing for your mind, then you have to let go of the expectation of how it needs to feel like, or how it needs to, like what the outcome should be of that meditation. You literally go into a state of whether you want to be sitting, looking at a candle, or with your eyes closed, or if you want to be listening to drumming music, or if you want to even go for a walk in the forest, you let go of every expectation that you have, and you just let your mind decompress on its own, because your mind knows how to do that. So there's other techniques, but that's one thing that you can do right now. Literally just shut off all the impressions that are coming from the outside. Like it's literally very, very not healthy, the habit that most of us have, to, like, when you have a break, to take out your mobile phone and scroll through something. This is the opposite of what you should be doing when you have a break. This is literally when your mind is most cluttered, you even put more clutter on it. So you don't give it a chance to get sorted, get organized. And there's one sentence that I find very helpful, which is, I have thoughts and I am not my thoughts. Because literally, how do you know that these thoughts are yours? So if you can just create a little bit of a gap between your identity, like who you think you are, and the things that you think, then you can let go a little bit more of the intensity and of the pressure that is connected to many of these thoughts, most probably. And just let yourself to be a bit more neutral and a bit less attached to what you're thinking. That alone can lead to a lot of clarity and give you the possibility to let go of thoughts that probably are not yours and probably are not that important as they try to be screaming at you. Yeah, so these are the 4 skills. And this literally comes down to a 4-body congruency, sort of. So by now you might have noticed that it all has to do with realigning. So congruency means that you have perfect overlap of the different aspects of who you are. And by 4 bodies, I literally mean the physical body, that you train the physical body to be in a resilient state, and the emotional body, that it is like a body. It has needs, it has nourishment that it needs, and it has its rhythms, and it has its peculiarities, and it also can be wounded in a way, and can heal also. So train your emotional body to surrender and to channel feelings, to let feelings go through your system and to let go of them as well. Then the mental body, being your mind, clearing that as well, being mindful of what you eat there, what you consume. And also the 4th body, which has to do with purpose and with alignment with that higher being that you are, the less tangible aspect of who you are, but still being, even though we might not understand what that exactly means and how that exactly works, to paying attention to the signs that might tell you that there is more intention into incarnating than you might have thought, and that there is some sort of purpose, some sort of reason why you're here and why you're supposed to be here. Even though a lot of your purpose is created as you go and you attach the meaning in hindsight, still paying attention to that 4th body, sort of that invisible body of your soul, or whatever you want to call it, that aspect, the internal aspect of you that has its needs also, like that everybody has this need for having a life of meaning and a life of purpose, a life that feels purposeful. I believe that this is not a luxury anymore, like to living a life with purpose, that it's absolutely a necessity. We have to do that. Otherwise we end up as a burned out and stressed and depressed society and sick society. And if we do not want that, then we have to relearn to realign these different bodies with their different needs. And with that, you literally become unburnoutable, because there is no way that you can deregulate yourself so much when you listen to all these aspects of who you are and always realign. Then there is so much guidance and there is so much support, and your body is such a self-healing mechanism. It's a miracle, and you can be that miracle. You can live your life in a way that is stunning, that is amazing. Like what you are capable of doing, what we are capable of doing as humans is amazing once we accept these mechanics of all these bodies that we have, and the functionality and the architecture kind of being a human. So I hope this was helpful, and thank you very much for listening, and take care.